Hi guys, and welcome back to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whiskey blog. I'm Andy and I'm back here today with a sort of whiskey review. It's more of a review of times past than a specific bottle, and that is because I'm going to be taking you through the 11-ish or so bottles of whiskey that I've recently procured at auctions. I say auctions multiple because I picked these up across two. One of them was a well-known dedicated whiskey website. That's not mine. And the other was an antiques and art auction, which is pretty unusual to find whiskey in, to be honest with you. So without further ado, and providing that Harris leaves me alone for 5 minutes, good boy, yes, thank you for the rabbit, really appreciate it, mate. What we're going to be looking at is the first box, and here is the first box. This has kind of all been mixed up over the different auctions, but we're going to start here. Hello, buddy. You're going on video? Yeah, good boy. We're going to start here. What's that? Yeah? You like this one? No, not bothered about that one. Okay. We've got Robbie Burns, sorry. Blended Scotch whiskey, bottled, I believe, around the sort of late 70s, early 80s. And the reason I think that is because, firstly, it's kind of across that period where we were changing from imperial to metric. This one is in metric. It's 40% volume, 75 cl, which is larger than more recent bottles, which under EU law we had to change to 700 ml. However, on the flip side, there's no barcode on it. Now, whether that means that this was in travel retail sector, I don't know. But if it was, the taxation strip for that relevant country wasn't there. If it's naff, it doesn't matter. I spent 20 quid on it. I can put it in rusty nail cocktails. It's fine. Another blend. Oh, it's not another blend. This one we've got a single malt. Highland Park, 10-year-old. From a bottle that I'm not really familiar with, to be honest. The Whiskey Connoisseur. Whether it's a sub-trading name for another company, I don't know, a subsidiary of something. But it's 40%. But might be natural colour, I'm not sure. But it's 40%. Cask 4477, distilled 20th of May 1991, bottled on the 1st of February 2002 in American oak. So you do get a bit of information on there, to be fair, but it's been watered down to 40%, which is quite unusual, but I suppose the official bottling is also watered down to 40%. So there you go. A 10-year-old independent bottling from the Whiskey Connoisseur of Highland Park. That one kind of went under everyone's radar a little bit, because I think I picked that up for something like 20 quid. When I say these prices, I'm telling you this because there's a lot of people like on social media, certainly in more recent years, now TikTok and Instagram have become a big thing, where you see people with thousands of bottles. I mean, I've got a lot, don't get me wrong, but they're plonking all these nice shiny bottles on their Instagram account, making everything seem hunky-dory, but they never really go into how much it costs and the sort of impact that has on your own life and your finances and whatever else. So I know people do like spill the bill stuff on all these random accounts and whatever about other things. So I thought, I'll tell you how much I spent. But the problem and the thing you got to bear in mind, when I'm saying, oh yeah, I only spent 20 quid on that, on top of that, you've usually got a buyer's fee, taxes and whatever else. So the ones that I bought from the art auction, for example, I think the buyer's premium is something like 32%. So all the price that I'm saying, I then had to add another third onto. In addition to that, whiskey auction houses, tend to charge a lot more for postage than Master of Malt, the Whiskey Exchange, whoever else. Rather than $4.99 for the Whiskey Exchange or free over 100 quid, auction houses tend to charge you 10 quid a bottle. So you're better off sometimes arranging your own courier or driving up there to get it. Next, anyway, so we've had Highland Park, we've had Robbie Burns. I've been conscious about trying to keep these videos snappier. It's not going well. So I tend to be a bit of a bottom feeder at auctions. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I tend to go for blends. I tend to go for bottles that I used to enjoy years ago that might come up cheap still compared to the original RRP. This one was only released about 5 years ago, and it was by the Whiskey Barrel, their Whiskey Barrel original series. And I'll be honest, the Whiskey Barrel aren't exactly known for being cheap compared to other retailers. So I didn't take them up on this offer at the time, because I think this retailed for about 60 quid. I picked this up for 30, and it's a 10-year-old Balblair, bottled at 59.4%, bottle 190 of 284, first fill, Oloroso hogshead. So this is a first fill sherry cask. Doesn't look it, so I'm assuming didn't spend too long in there, to be honest with you. But there you go. What appears to be a single cask Balblair, which is pretty cool. And I got it cheaper than retail, even with the passage of time and the relevant fees on top. Next one's a bit unusual because I can't find any information out about this one. This is bottled by Hunter Lang. This is a 19-year-old Glenbergie. I love Glenbergie. It's really under the radar. The Whisky Exchange released one of their first Black Fridays. Their first, well, was it the second, third Black Friday bottling? 20-something-year-old. I believe that was a Glenbergie, the one with the purple wax. Great whiskey, great distillery. Gordon MacPhail, their old Glenbergie 10 that used to retail for like 25, 30 quid. That were brilliant. And now they don't do it anymore. Well, if they do, they probably charge you a shed ton for it. So, anyway, this 19-year-old single cask, I believe, Glenbergie, was bottled specifically for, apologies French speakers, cheers mate, or anybody with ears, for the Les Confrères de la Clairière Society, whatever that may be. Sorry for my pronunciation, sorry for my murdering of the French language, but ultimately this hogshead had 289 bottles, and it was a red wine hogshead finished in a La Clairière Laithwaite red wine hogshead. Whether that's linked to Laithwaite's, the wine company in the UK, not a clue. Next up, we have a really interesting Islay whiskey in the form of this, and it's with an independent bottler that you don't really see very often, and that is Douglas of Drumlanrig. Now, the reason I bought this for the princely sum of 80 quid was because it's not very often that you see Douglas of Drumlanrig anymore, not even had a drink yet. But also, it's not very often that you see independently bottled Laphroaig under the Laphroaig name. You see it teaspooned, where it's like touted as Williamson, I believe. And also, it's a very small cask. This is a refill sherry butt with 575 bottles. It's all right, it's not a small cask, but it's a single cask. Bottled in 2015, in May 2015, distilled April 2002. So yeah, pretty cool. I paid 80 quid for that, and I think that retailed originally back in 2015 at about 120. So they weren't cheap. I think it might have been exclusively available through the Whisky Shop, which they're not cheap either, which is why. Next, I've been after one of these for a number of years. This is a 12-year-old Tomintoul. Tomintoul Glenlivet being the official name of the distillery, and this is whilst it was under the White and Mackay ownership. It's very retro, very sort of like 70s, 80s, early 90s-esque. I believe this one to have been bottled in the early 90s. Now, the reason that I say that, put that down, is because all the bottlings of this had a different cap. It's actually in very good nick. This box is in perfect condition. There's no scratches, dents, anything. Been very well kept. This is what whiskey people that know it refer to as the perfume bottle, Tomintoul, because it looks like quite an ugly, to be frank, perfume bottle. It's very tacky. It's also kind of got an Art Deco feel about it, but the older versions of this had a bit more of a, what I'd describe as kind of a classier cap on the top, which kind of had indentations in it. This is kind of just printed with barley shapes. It's bottled at 40%. I paid about 40 quid for this. Oh, sorry, 43%. There you go. I believe it to be screw top, but weirdly, there is quite a lot of unnamed, unsure of what the hell it is sediment, to be honest. So, yeah, that'll be nice. Let's see what that's like. Moving on. I was trying to keep these videos snappy, but I'm really struggling because there's quite a lot to get through. Next, another blend, but I'm really excited about this one. This is a bottle of Krabby's 12-year-old blended Scotch whisky, and I believe this to date from the 1970s. The reason being twofold. There's no barcode on it again, but also if you see 70 proof and 26 2/3 ounces, is it any wonder we went metric? What does that even mean? No, stop. So this will likely have whiskey from the 1960s, depending on when it was bottled in the 70s, possibly even older, I don't know. It might even have, I mean, again, bearing in mind 12 years old is the youngest youngest whiskey that goes into this. It could even have older whiskies in it, which could be from the 50s, 40s. Very cool. You just never know. That's why I love old blends. Really funky. Right, next box. Damn, yes, there's more to come. Wake up, guys. Wake up, guys. Maltbox is reviewing old whiskies again. Next one, cheap and cheerful. 15 quid this cost me. Did I tell you how much the other one cost me? Yeah, Krabby's, sorry. 42 quid, if I didn't say already. Bit more than I normally pay for a blend, but I was intrigued. House of Lords, pretty unknown whiskey. And Harris is destroying the tube from from the Hunter Lang. Oh, God's sake. I think they still might have House of Lords somewhere in some guys, but I mean, this was originally bottled by William Whiteley Pitlochry, so up in Pitlochry in Scotland. So 40%, 8 years old, House of Lords, as I understand it to be from what people say online, bit generic, but again, if it's crap, it doesn't matter, because I spent 15 quid on it. Next, I'm going to leave that one to the end. Next, right. Now this was weird. So, MacPhail's, 10-year-old, Gordon MacPhail. This original. What are you doing? Is that a whiskey label? God's sake. Oh, I'll send you to auction. I will. I'll send you to the livestock auction. Put some white paint on you. People think you're a cow. Anyway, MacPhail's. So this is bottled by Gordon MacPhail. This was kind of their house malt. When you go to a bar or a restaurant, they've got house red, house white. This was kind of their house whiskey. Some people say it's Macallan. I don't know. I'm really not too bothered. Didn't have very good reviews. If you go on Whiskey Base, it's got like 79 out of 100. To be honest, again, don't give two shits. It cost me about 20 quid, 25 quid. And you can't get this anymore. They don't make it. Or again, in true Gordon MacPhail style nowadays, if you do still make a MacPhail's, they'll be charging you a lot of money for it in the fancy new bottle. On the MacPhail's theme, haha. This one, kind of excited for again. This is, what are you doing, buddy? This is a this is a bottle of Macallan. Gordon MacPhail, Spey Malt, as they call Macallan, under their own range. Now, this, I've had two bottles of this previously, way back in 2015 when it was originally released. So this was distilled in 1997, bottled 2015, and I remember really enjoying it, finding it a really good affordable alternative to what were Macallan's releases at the time of the amber, the sienna, the gold, the no age statement nonsense. Now you've obviously got some of the age statements in there, like the 12 fine oak, the sherry oak, but the sherry oak 12-year-old is like 80 quid. What, give your head a wobble. So, admittedly, I paid more than 80 quid for this. I paid about 120, more than I wanted to. But having had this before, I know that I really like it, and it's good. You can't get it anymore. It was bottled like nearly 10 years ago. So I'm willing to pay a bit more of a premium for something like that I can't get anymore. The next one, a bit unusual. In fact, let's do this first. This one, no, maybe not unusual, quite basic really, I suppose. We've got James MacArthur, Tomatin, 12-year-old. Not too much about the cask, just 12 years old, bottled, 43%, 70 cl. Bit about the distillery on the back, which I'm not going to bore you with now. But apparently it says it tastes peaty. Now, yeah, I've not tasted a proper peaty tomatin, outside of the Kuhnbocken official range, but I know there is a little bit of peat in the mix anyway, with their standard bottlings. Next bit, miniatures. I don't normally buy miniatures, all right? I don't know, that's the microphone, mate. Don't eat that, all right? Sorry about this. I don't normally buy miniatures. No reason, I'm just not a miniature guy. You know, I like full bottles. I feel hard done by when I spend proportionately more on a small bottle. The way I see it is if I'm spending 50 quid on 70 cl, why would I then spend 10 quid on 5 of the same bottle? 5 cl doesn't make sense. Times that 10 by 7, 70 quid. Whatever. You know, it's like, in terms of value for money, bigger bottles are better value for money, basically. Right, so I've never bothered. But this was in perfect condition. Originally bought by some fair soul way back when for 20 English pounds. See that? This is the Gordon MacPhail Spey Malt collection. It's one of the more recent ones. When I say recent, I'm not talking 2014, 15, 16. This is from the 90s at best, possibly some of the 80s. The reason I bought this where I ordinarily wouldn't is because it was in such good condition and it had some whiskies in there that I've wanted to try for a number of years. I paid a bit more than I wanted to. I paid over 100 quid for this. But when I say it's in good condition, I mean it is in good condition. This thing has basically been bought whenever it was bought and it's been put in a cupboard and kept there. So there's some pretty basic stuff in it, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but we've got like a J.G. Smith's Glenlivet. You can still buy that, again from Gordon MacPhail. All these you can still buy from Gordon MacPhail. But here we've got a nice sort of older bottling of 10-year-old Macallan. It is ABV, percentage by volume, so it's not particularly old. But we've got things like Clynelish, nice old Clynelish. One's a whiskey that I've never tried in my life before. But I've heard some good things, maybe not about this particular one. But Glenmore, 8-year-old Glenmore. That distillery was demolished years ago. We've got a Black Label Talisker in there. And how often do you see Talisker named on a bottle nowadays as an independent bottler? Bal Blair. What's this one? A Glen Grant. An old Longmont Glenlivet. Pretty heavily sherry by the looks of it as well. I've got a Pulteney, a Glenrothes, a Glen Calder blended Scotch whisky. We've got a Mortlach at the front. There's a lot in there to like, and I kind of like the idea of comparing these older whiskies on a smaller scale in miniature form to the larger cousins, so I don't have to spend a shit ton on the modern equivalents to compare it to. Right. Final whiskey. I am going to try and wrap this up. This is going to be a very long video, and I'm sorry guys, but I wanted to share these with you so you can see what might be coming up in the future, or basically just give you an idea of the things that you can pick up yourself. It's a bottle of whiskey that I never thought I'd be able to buy a whiskey like this, or be able to afford to buy a whiskey like this. So I'm forever grateful that I'm in the position that I can. I did, however, still get it for a song compared to some other auctions, I think, and it's this. It's a Rosebank, a 12-year-old Rosebank. Now, is this the most special bottle of whiskey that you can buy at auction? No. Is it hell? Is there a lot of it about? Yes. Do other people have them? Absolutely. Do other people have many bottles of it? Probably. Do have people bought it for less than I paid for it in the past? Probably. However, this is an older batch from the early 90s. It's Rosebank distilled in the sort of early to mid 80s probably. This might even be from 1989, I think. Or no, I don't think they had this range in 1989. I think it is the early 90s. But it's bottled at 43%. I can't find too much information on the batch code. They still made this sort of flora and fauna version of Rosebank way up until the early 2000s, I think, or mid 2000s. But for me, I've had the privilege of trying Rosebank once before, and I loved it. I thought it was really nice. I loved the Lowland style. Rosebank epitomised a lot of that in many ways. And I mean, I spent about 240 quid on this. It's the most that I've ever landed on a single bottle of whiskey. It's 12 years old. Normally I'd be like, why would you spend that much on a 12-year-old? It doesn't matter. But for me, this has been a whiskey that when I started drinking whiskey, I saw people purchasing stuff like this thinking they were mental in it, because at the time, this probably just used to cost 15, 20 years ago when I started drinking it. I don't know, 70 quid, which back then, inflation and all that was a lot of money. I didn't have money back then. I was skint. So now that I'm I was able to pick this up at a relatively good price by my standards at least. I was chuffed to bits, and I will be opening it. I will be enjoying it with a special occasion. Although we all have a special occasion whiskey that doesn't get opened, but hey ho, it's going to get opened. I'm going to enjoy it. So guys, that was a whistle stop tour. I've done a lot of talking. I'm probably looking at a counter on the clock here of about 20 minutes as opposed to the 9 minutes that I was aiming for. So I do apologise. Thank you very, 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 very much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Thanks. See you soon. All right.